Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes, it's that time, it's that time, it's that time. Just like that, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to welcome you to another exciting episode of Enlightened, hosted by me, your host, Muneli Body, Vanaduka Duka Mukaraway. I hope that wherever where you are watching, tuning in, listening in from, I hope that you're happy. I hope that you're excited. I'm recording this at around 20 to 12. It's a Monday. Not so long. It's gonna be a Tuesday. And today, I don't wanna waste much of your time, but I just want to talk about something that has been in me, something that has been I've been thinking about, I've been meditating on. It has been resonating on me for quite some time now, and I was like, no, I need to record this. I need to put this out there so that other people can share and have an opportunity to listen to what I have to say. And tonight, at this moment, I want to talk about the people that God calls. The people that God calls. It could be God calling these people to start a business, God calling these people maybe to start a church, to preach, or maybe to run an organization, or God calling these people to do whatsoever that they have to do. It could be God calling these people to occupy certain position, to become presidents, to become leaders. And one thing that I've realized, from listening to the voice of experience, because experience has a voice. In as much as wisdom has a voice, in as much as your mind has a voice, experience also has a voice. So I have learned that I've learned, from listening to the voice of experience, and I've been learning and watching, and I've realized that the people that God calls, most of them, they don't have it. They don't look like it. The people that God calls, they don't look like it. You can undermine them, you can reject them. Most of the time, the people that God uses, it could be the using them to occupy a position of leadership. They don't have it. They are not the guy, they are not the lady. I've learned this from myself. From a young age, I always knew that I'm going to be a child who will bring a lot of difference in the world. I always knew that I'm going to be maybe become a leader. I always knew that there's something about me. I always knew that I will bring a certain change. I always knew that I am unique, I'm different. As I may not have known how will the change come through me, but I knew change will come. When I was in grade 6, my dream was to become the president of South Africa, because I've always wanted to bring about change. And then when I started to grow up, when I started to have an encounter with God, when I started to know God, when I started to become born again, when I started to know myself anew in a certain way, that's when a lot of things started to make sense. And when I look at myself, right, I'm just an ordinary guy. I was born in the village, to a woman whom now she's a cleaner, and my dad is a security guard. And as I'm recording this, my mom is still a cleaner. My dad is still a security guard. It's painful, right? But it's the truth. But you see, when you listen, or when you listen to my humble beginning and where I come from, and then looking at where I come from, born with a cleaner, born with a security guard, and I'm just this boy is born in the rural area, born in an environment where we struggle to just have food, we struggle to just have clothes, being born in a place where you eat some certain food in some certain time, where drinking tea and bread is an achievement. Imagine, tea and bread is an achievement. But then again, coming to a realization that such a boy, born to a cleaner and a security guard, is actually called, is actually chosen to bring about change, is actually chosen to love humanity. I tell you, I struggled with that, because most of the time I think the calling, I think why many people struggle with where God want to take them, is because we tend to look at where we are, we look at our circumstances, we look at our environment, we look at the things that we do not have, and when we look at what we do not have, we then undermine ourselves. It's like we then struggle to receive our destiny. We then struggle to receive our calling, because you are looking at the car that you don't have. You are looking at the marriage that you don't have. You are looking at yourself at a place where you are. and then you realize that God is calling you there, is calling you to become a president. God is calling you to become a pastor. God is calling you to become a woman of God. God is calling you to run a business. And now God is calling you to run a business, but presently you don't even have a business. You don't even have money. So it's hard for you to believe that you will one day become a multi-millionaire, because when you look at yourself now, you don't even have 20 rand. But I want you to understand something. The people that God calls, they don't look like it. They don't have it. You know, there are people whom, like, when you meet them and they say, yeah, this guy is actually a millionaire, you can agree. But do you know, most great people, you know, they don't look like they're great. That's one thing that I've learned. It's like God in his wisdom, he has a way of hiding greatness. Such that many people who are great, they don't look like they're great, and they don't talk like they're great. You see, do you know that many, let's talk about millionaires. Many millionaires, people who are truly millionaires, if you truly meet them, you wouldn't even know that this person is actually a millionaire, because they are just ordinary beings. Many great people, if you are to meet them, you will be surprised. Is this the person that they're talking about? Because they are just ordinary beings who have been called by a great God. And that's one thing that I've learned. I mean, you look at the former president of South Africa, President Jacob Zuma. You look at him, no grade 12. He's just an ordinary guy born in Nkandla, 3 wives, if not 4. He's a traditionalist, you know. But you see him being raised by God to become the president. And if you look at him with his head and everything, I mean, there's so many memes. There's so many jokes about former President Jacob Zuma. People joked about his head. He can't even, I remember there was a time where he couldn't even count a certain number. When he'll be counting numbers, he'll be like, hey, you know, sometimes he even struggle with words. He even go like, hey. You know, President Jacob Zuma will be like, hey, English. And then he even shake his head like, hey, English. I mean, when you look at him, and you look at that in a democratic South Africa, he's the longest reigning president. No one has reigned longer than former President Jacob Zuma as of today, as I'm doing this podcast. You get what I'm saying? But he is the guy who's chosen to become the president. And yet he doesn't have grade 12. But imagine, there are so many educated guys, so many wise guys, but those people are not chosen to become the president. Why? Because the people that God calls, they don't show it. They don't look like it. They don't talk like it. In fact, you can undermine them. There's a verse in the Bible that I love the most. It says, always receive strangers, because some have received angels without knowing. In other words, those people who received angels, they did not receive angels. They received ordinary people. And the ordinary people were angels. So most of the time, you know, in life, ever since I learned this personally, Muneli, I've learned to honor everybody and to love everybody, because I don't know who's this person. Especially when you are meeting strangers, you don't know whom you are meeting. You don't know who you are interacting with. So you just want to give them honor, because you never know. Perhaps the cleaner can tomorrow become the president. Perhaps the security guard can tomorrow become the CEO. Perhaps the lady who look like she's a nobody can tomorrow become great. And I've learned, and as I am seeing life, I have seen God taking ordinary people and he takes them, he makes them to become great people. I've seen stories changing. I've seen people who, you know, one thing that I love about life is that when you look at many great people, maybe millionaires, maybe people who are impacting the world, it could be leaders, it could be pastors, it could be a politician. When you look at them, most people who are up there, you'll realize that most of them, they are not that learned. You get what I'm saying? They are not that learned. They don't have those qualifications. In fact, most of the time, those with those qualifications struggle to survive, struggle to maintain those high positions. You find someone who's learned, degree and everything, masters, but he cannot run a country. But God will take somebody without degree, without masters, and he makes him to become a president. Why? Because the people that God calls, they don't have it. They don't show it. They don't look like it. So if you just joined, you're still tuned into Enlightened with your host Muneli Bati, and today we're talking about the people that God calls. So now when I read the Bible, and I'm amazed by when God will go to Moses and then he's trying to get Moses to go and take the Israelites from Egypt to Canaan. Like, what I love about there, Moses tried by all means to reject the call. One time I was like, no, God, I don't know how to speak. I don't know how to speak. So God was like, no, Aaron will speak for you. And I was like, okay, no, it's fine. Let's say I go there. It's not say I'm going to go. Let's say I go there. And they ask me, who sent me? Who shall I say sent me? And then God said, you'll say, I am. And he tried so many things until God even said, okay, what is it that is in your hand? Throw it down. And throw the stick down. The stick became a snake. But you look at everybody that God called. You look at this one, Jacob. The Bible says Jacob was a supplanter. He was a thief. He's the guy that sat down with his mother and they came up with a plan, and then they robbed his own brother of the firstborn blessing, of the fact that Esau was the firstborn. But we all know that, okay, Esau was the firstborn and Jacob was the secondborn. But Jacob came up with a plan, and then he managed to take the firstborn from his brother, and he was now the firstborn instead of his brother. And the Bible says before these kids were born, which is Esau and Jacob, God said the older will serve the younger. And God said, Esau I hate, Jacob I love. This was before they were born. But the one that God is saying he loves by the name of Jacob, the Bible says he was a supplanter. In other words, he was a deceiver. He was a tricker. Jacob was tricky. He was full of tricks. But this guy that is full of tricks is the person that God is saying, I love. Why? Because the people that God calls, they don't look like it. Now you look at Joseph. Joseph is there in prison, and then he's interpreting the dreams of these two guys, and then interpret them. Another one gets killed, another one go out. And what is so amazing about that story is that the man whom Joseph helps goes out and he forgets Joseph. Because the people that God calls, they are forgettable. You know, there are people whom you can't forget because they got the looks, you know what I'm saying? When they talk, it's like their eyes are full of gold, like, I just can't forget it. But the man that was helped by Joseph forget Joseph, because it was easy for you to can forget Joseph because he didn't look like it. He didn't have it. That's why his brothers sold him. It was easy for you to can sell him. You get what I'm saying? So there are people whom it is easy for you to can forget them. It is easy for you to cannot believe them because they don't look like it. I'm amazed. I love studying great people. I love learning from great people. And many of the great people that I study and learn, I realize that some of them, they're just like myself. They come from humble beginning, born with a cleaner, born with a security guard. Ordinary people, born with a teacher. Ordinary